Thanks, Robert, for the nice introduction, and thanks everyone for joining my talk today. It's more an applied study on acquired bait, lure and bait avoidance effects in recreational fishing for a predatory species, the northern pike. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay. A little bit about the background. So, as most of you know, recreational fishing doesn't affect, um, yeah, affect fish beyond the fisheries mortality. So even in a non-harvest orientated fisheries where the fish are released, fish can acquire hook avoidance and also display some other behavioral shifts like migration into areas where they're not vulnerable anymore. So this adaptation, behavioral adaptation, might bias the catch statistics and also even affect angler satisfaction overall if catches go down. The northern pike, my study subject, is an apex predator in many temperate water bodies throughout the northern hemisphere, including Europe and Germany. And they exert strong top-down ecological control on baitfish populations. They also have a high recreational value, so anglers love to target big pike. And there have been known behavioral variation over the last decades in pike. For example, there have been found more proactive versus reactive individuals in a population of pike, and this behavior correlates also with their catchability. So some of the individuals are more likely to be targeted by angling compared to others. And also what has been shown is short-term learning in some experiments. So yeah, my follow-up question there was, okay, we found some learning, but how long is this learning effect present in the population? So we wanted to know if this lure and bait avoidance through learning is present in a natural population of northern pike. And yeah, for that, I was lucky enough to try to close the research gap in a closed system, which was previously unfished, and it was an isolated lake population. So the fish could not migrate out of the area into an area where they're not vulnerable from me. So, and I wanted to test three things, and my hypothesis were basically the avoidance learning reduces the individual recapture probability. My second one would be that we could see bait type effects on the selectivity. And my third one was that even without the harvest, so in a pure catch and release fishery, the fishing pressure would decrease the long-term catchability of the population. As I said, this was my study lake. It's a closed system, 1 hectare in size. There was no stocking, so complete natural population. And for over 20 years, there was no fishing activity. So the fish were completely naive to angling, which was quite good for me. And the second cool thing was the only predator species there were northern pike. So when I did the angling experiments, every strike I counted was directly connected to the northern pike and not other species. Next to the pike, we had some cyprinid species as baitfish or prey fish for the predator, like carp, roach, rudd, and tench. So my study design. Over a period of 3 years, every spring and every autumn, I conducted an angling session over a period of 2 weeks, containing 6 angling days. On each day, there was a standardized angling effort. 2 anglers were casting each 300 casts per day with 3 different types of lures in 2 size classes. So we used soft plastic baits, bright colors, natural colors, and a dead baitfish. We used wacky rigs for the dead baitfish and for the other one offset hooks to avoid snags in the heavy vegetation. And we used single hooks to reduce damage of the fish while capturing them. At the end of each year, we also did electrofishing in the population to estimate the population size overall. And yeah, if you just remember 1 hectare of size, in total 300 casts, per day per angler. So we really put a lot of pressure on the water body, and the fish did not have any space to escape. All pike captured were photographed and safely released, and the image was stored in a database. So for individual identification of the animals, we could use this database. In total, we captured 148 individuals with electrofishing, 69 captures with angling, and of these 69 angled fish, we identified 49 individual pike. So here are some impressions from the fishing activity. As you can see on the image on the right, I'm also happy catching smaller fish. No, so basically this was the reality. So most of the fish average size of caught angling was around 50 centimeters. And yeah, thanks Jürgen for the nice picture there. Yeah, here I want to show you some about the identification of the pike. So pike have an unique color pattern, and so you can use that pattern to identify the individual fish. So this fish was caught in total 4 times with different methods: electrofishing, angling, angling again, and then electrofishing again, so over a period of over 2 years. And yeah, here are some of the images I collected. So if you look close at the area of the anal fin, so there's a distinct pattern of the coloration of the pike, and you could track the animal over several years. Okay, to give you an overview, based on our electrofishing, we did and also natural mortality estimates what we got from the literature. We estimated the population size of the pike, which were around 174 individuals per hectare, which is on the upper limit, but it's already also reported already in the literature. But yeah, so I think this is completely the carrying capacity of this water body. And on the right-hand side, I just wanted to show you, with increasing number of my angling captures, more and more of the fish I caught were already in my database. So they were not vanishing out of the population, they stayed in the population, and we also sampled through the population. Okay, here a small overview about our effort. In total, we conducted over 22,000 casts. As I was always on the boat, I conducted over 11,000 casts, equally distributed effort between the different bait types. However, when we look at the captures, there was a significant effect on the dead baitfish, so which nearly caught 50% of all captured pike compared to the other bait types. And also, if we look at the population structure, so length distribution of the population, we can see clearly, and that's quite interesting, that in our fishery, over 40% of the pike larger than 40 centimeters were actually vulnerable to capture. So we could target them, and that was a catch and release fishery. So just imagine that for a harvest-orientated fishery. And here I wanted to show you the effects within my angling sessions. So 6 days over a period of 2 weeks. In spring and autumn, the striking and the capture probability significantly decreased. So first day was the best day catching pike, and then it decreased over time. In autumn, stronger than in spring. So apparently in spring there is some, because of energy demand of spawning season, there's less learning present in spring. And also the dead baitfish was a little bit more efficient compared to the soft plastic baits. So a little bit less learning there. Okay, and now the interesting stuff as well. If we look at different years, so we can actually see in the striking probability and capture probability, even though we released the individual fish, there was a carryover effect of our fishing activity. So yeah, striking probability and capture probability decreased over time. Size of the captured fish did not decrease. So in this case, sorry, I forgot, we just used, and for that analysis, the 2 first days of each session, because these were the days where most of the fish were caught. So we can see a long-lasting learning effect and a long-lasting behavioral adaptation. last but not least, I wanted to show you the bait selectivity. And we found one very interesting, significant aspect. First, in first captures, the bright-colored soft plastic lure was quite efficient, but over time, in follow-up captures, that was the only one that significantly changed in the likelihood of capturing the fish. So that one elicited quite the strong learning response in pike compared to more natural colored soft plastic baits and the dead bait. Okay, just to sum it up, the capture vulnerability in an unfished population is apparently non-random, so we have different pools of individuals, some more likely to be captured than others. In a catch and release fishery, pike can acquire rapid and long-term bait avoidance, so some of the catchable fish migrate at least temporarily over in the non-catchable pool. Learning is bait dependent, with the soft plastic bait and bright colors exerting quite a strong effect. And the vulnerability varies between season and size. So in general, large pike are more vulnerable to capture, and learning effects were less strong in spring during spawning. So what does it mean for fisheries management? So quite cool finding. This long-term learning is quite a self-conservation tool for the population. So yeah, it could definitely help their help the population there. The bait regulations could influence the removal. So yeah, you as managers could decide, okay, we want to use more this one, which inflicts more learning compared to others. Restrictions during spawning can protect the fish. And important note is here, so the long-term catch data may underestimate the true abundance of the pike population, therefore can bias the fisheries assessment and even angler satisfaction. So key note here, monitoring behavioral responses is essential for sustainable predator management, hopefully not only in pike, but also other predator species worldwide. Thank you.
Really good. Very nice. Okay, questions?
Hi, great talk. I was curious if, I don't know much about pike, so I didn't know if they have a different energy demand around spring, and maybe that's why they're just like feeding more aggressively to store up for mating season, not necessarily a learning like after effect.
Yeah, so definitely spring had the effect, which I think is definitely because of the spawning season. So there's a higher energy demand, so there's less learning present because they just need the energy and just have to feed up, and to produce offspring. Yeah, definitely.
Cool talk, well done. So when looking at hook shyness and relating it to catch and release, sorry if I missed it. Sorry if I missed it, but I'm just wondering why you electrofished these individuals, and if you think that that could change their natural behavior as to how aggressive they feed.
Okay. Well, I needed to do the electrofishing to get an estimate of the entire population and also look for fish which just might be in the non-catchable pool of the angling population. So as I saw, there were definitely fish which in the several years fishing, I never caught with angling, but only caught with electrofishing. So they're not vulnerable, and I needed that to estimate population size in different pools.
Short question, how biased is the picture identification?
Picture identification on larger pike, I'm quite positive that I identified all the fish. Smaller pike, it's more difficult, but since we sampled through quite frequently in the years, so not like basically after several years intervals, I think that even the small pikes we could still re-identify. But you're right, there is a bias in there because, as you know, small pike growing bigger, they change the coloration. So in adult animals, like over 25 centimeters, it's more stable. Under it, it's more difficult.
Just a question from a fisherman. You counted how many casts you did, but I kind of know that each cast is not the same. Your retrieve can differ, you know, in terms of letting the lure sink, if you bounce it along. And I presume with your dead baits, you threw them and left them. You didn't retrieve them, or you moved it in. I'm just wondering if there was sort of any bias that could creep in terms of the retrieve.
Well, yeah. Well, we try to standardize as much as possible. And you're right, there is some variability, but I think, yeah, over the huge amount of casts, I think that will be, yeah, leveled out.
Excellent talk. You might have said this, but you electrofished, you found individuals that you didn't see when you were angling, but at some point they might have entered the fishery, right? So how late in the 3 years did you see that maybe the fish you electrofished the first year suddenly was caught? I mean, what was the time span? Do you see what I mean? The latest appearance, you could say.
So the latest appearance of fish which were previously not known. Yeah, that's quite a tricky question to answer. So even though we used electrofishing, of course you just always just sample a certain part of the population and cannot sample everything. So you spook the fish. So we still in the end had fish in a size which would have been there before already. Yeah, caught for the first time. So it would have been, of course, better if you could drain the pond in the end and just count all the fish. But yeah.
Thank you very much.